We can't heal what we won't speak. We can't understand what we won't hear. And we can't become what we won't decree. The time is now. The moment is now. Let's communicate. What's going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? I am so glad for you to be joining me again. It is great to have you in this place because we are talking about my new book that is coming out very shortly. It will be coming out June the 22nd, and I'm elated to talk about this book. I'm elated that you can join me tonight to talk about this book. So thank you, no matter where you are. Thank you for joining me to talk about this book, Hard Conversations. Again, it's coming out June 22nd. And so I want to thank you. I'm going to give people a moment to come into the room. What's going on, Philip? God bless everybody that's joining. Again, I am BJ Communicates, and I'm so glad for this book to be coming out, Hard Conversations, Breadcrumbs to the Past, which is coming out on June 22nd, everywhere that books are sold. Everywhere. If you want a hard copy, if you want a digital copy, June 22nd, the book will be out everywhere that books are sold. And so I'm so glad for everyone that's joining me on all of my social media platforms. I want to encourage you, if you have not heard the new music, before this time together is over, I'll play the new song once again, the new single that's inspired by the book called You're Real. And so I'll play that before the hour is, or not the hour, before the time together is over. But I am so glad for you to join me. And tonight we're going to delve into a concept from the book, one of the overarching themes of the book. Again, it's a collection, it's a fiction book. So it's not about anybody that I know. It's not about anybody else's story, except it's all of our story. But it's not about it's not inspired by anyone, no real person. But once you read the book, you'll understand that it's all of our stories, or someone that we know story. And so I am so glad and so happy to be able to share with you this new book called Hard Conversations. It is a collection of fiction short stories that will be out again June 22nd. And so I'm not going to prolong our time together, but I am going to jump into the overarching concept for this week's talk. So we're meeting every Tuesday from now until from last Tuesday up until the time that the book is released on June 22nd. And so I just wanted to take a moment and come on live and discuss one of the themes from the book. So I want you to share it. I want you to share it, this broadcast. But one of the overarching themes for the book that I think that all of us can identify with one way or another is the theme of rejection of parents. All right. So one of the characters in the book is facing at the very moment of the story rejection of a parent. And some of us is why I don't relate to that, but I'm sure you know somebody that can relate to that. And so what is rejection of a parent? Is when the people that are your mentors, the people that are your parents, the people that have birthed you, the people that have raised you or reared you, you find them where they are rejecting you. And rejection can come in so many ways. It's not just where they don't want you from birth. It could be a couple of ways to identify that you can think about. It could be that they didn't want you at birth. That's one. They gave you away, adoption, surrender, foster care. It could be that they rejected you by giving themselves over to addiction. Right, they're in the thralls of an addiction that has hindered them from being a great parent to you, that's hindered them from being able to rear you and to give you the attention and the love that all children need. Another way that a parent can reject you is that throughout your whole life they compete with you. right? So you and your dad, you and your mom, they're in your life, they're present, they're in the household, yet you always feel like they're comparing themselves to you. They're always competing with you about what you're wearing, what you look like, what you're doing. When you tell about something going on with you, they have to tell about something that's going on with them. It's like you're always in competition with them. That's another form of rejection from a parent. Another form of it is that they're in the house, but they pay you no attention, right? So you have parents that are in the house, and from the outside looking in, people would think that you have it going on. They would think that everything is well, and that you have two parents or one parent living at home, and yet you're living in a home all by yourself. Because you are not a priority in the home for your parents, where they should have a stake in your life and giving you attention in your life and rearing you and being engaged in your life. They are in the house, but they are not present for you. That is a form of rejection of a parent. And all these things can cause issues in your life because, as I said before, the role that God designed for parents, the role for parents, number one, the role of a father is to give identity. And so when we have parents that reject us in one form or another, whether it's another form of rejection, I should have said earlier, is that when one child is favored over another. When one child is favored over another, that's a form of rejection. It breeds infighting among siblings. Some people call it sibling rivalry. And you find it where you're both competing for the love and affection and approval of a parent, especially a dad, because God has ordained for dads to give identity. So when sons and daughters do not get identity from a father, whether it's through their absence or their nonchalantness, or they don't care at all, what happens is we struggle throughout our lives trying to identify who we are, because it's something innate that God has put in men, that they would show their children who they are. And so what has happened is they get a divine, if they tune into it, they get a divine download from God regarding what arena and what area their children are to go into. And so when they do not plug into that, children go crazy. They make a lot of mistakes that could be avoided if they would have just had someone that was accepting them, leading them, guiding them in the form of a father. The same thing with mothers. Without a mother being present, a mother teaches children how to exist in relationships. I'll say it again. Mothers teach children how to exist in relationships. And so when a mother is not present, when a mother rejects a child in one of the ways that we just mentioned a few minutes ago, what happens is children grow up not knowing how to have healthy relationships. Not only will they do anything in relationships, they'll accept anything in relationships, because it's up to the mother to teach a child how to exist in relationship, right? And so they find themselves always struggling to be close to people, always struggling to fit in, always struggling to be accepted and loved, or being able to give love, because of the fact that they have been rejected by a parent. So for those of us that are just joining in, tonight we're talking about an overarching theme of the book all around the rejection of parents. As I stated earlier, one of the characters in my fiction book that is coming out on June the 22nd is one of the characters. They deal with the rejection of a parent. And that's one of the things that can cause the most struggle and turmoil in a person's life, when they do not know who they are, because a father was not there to give them identity, or a mother was not there or not interested in giving them the key cornerstone of relationship, which is how to exist or be in relationship. Sometimes if a mother is not aware, she can be in relationship with people but showing the wrong thing. If a mother allows men to walk all over them, more than likely they'll raise daughters to do the same, or who will try to overcompensate for trying not to be like their mother, but they wind up doing the exact same thing. Why? Because they saw the wrong type of relationship, because a mother was more interested in a man than they were in their child. And so one of the characters in my book, Hard Conversations, again, it's coming out June 22nd, deals with this. So tonight we're talking about the overarching theme of the rejection of a parent. And so the character in the book has to deal with having a hard conversation with the parent that they've never known. And so they have to have it, because in order for you to move on, in order for you to find your thriving place, in order for you to find the place where you can become the highest version, the best version of yourself for your assignment in the earth, Sometimes you have to have the hard conversation. Sometimes it comes in the form of a letter. Sometimes it comes in the form of a face-to-face conversation. But sometimes you have to have the hard conversation in order for you to heal, in order for the restoration process to start, in order for you to be able to let it go, to move on. Not everything can be let go of simply. Not everything can be let go of simply by just putting distance between you and them and saying it doesn't bother you. Sometimes it takes the hard conversation to tell the gut-wrenching truth, to tell the exact thing that happened to you, of how it made you feel, of what the trauma caused in your life, in order to move on. And so one of the characters has to delve into that, and they go in the story of this particular character in my book. They talk about all the things that it cost them with being rejected by their parent. And like I said, rejection of a parent can happen for a parent that is in the house or outside of the house. Sometimes kids are rejected or people are rejected right in the home that they live in. And so they have to have that hard conversation. So I just want to talk just a little bit about the rejection of a parent. Again, it's a theme of the book. And like I said, this is a story that is common to everybody. It may not be you personally, but you know somebody, you got a cousin, a brother, a sister, a friend that has dealt with this. And we sometimes don't realize the damage that's been caused to us by our rearing. But a lot of the problems that we're facing right now, a lot of the issues of why we can't get our lives going in the direction fully that we want it to, is because of what has happened to us in our past. Specifically, the most damaging thing that can happen to a person is what happens at the hands of their parents. That's why becoming a parent is not anything to take lightly, because the most damage that is done, to think about it, most of the damage that has been done to you in your life probably started in your house. It didn't start at school. It may have continued there, but it started right in the four walls of your house. And so we have to get clear. We have to have the clarifying conversations about it so that we can allow God to heal us, and so that we can move forward in our lives and become the best version of us. Okay. So just a couple of principles when we're talking about the concept of being rejected by a parent in one form or another. So yes, you have to have the hard conversation, hence the name of the book. You have to have the hard conversation. Sometimes it's writing a letter. Again, sometimes it's rehearsing what you're going to say. Sometimes it's writing it down to get it out and being completely honest about what happened to you. Being completely honest about how it made you feel, right? And so the first thing I want to encourage you of while we're talking about the concept from the book is, do not be afraid of what your parent might say. Do not be afraid of what your parent might say. Sometimes we don't have the hard conversations because we're afraid of what the backlash will be. But understand, you're having the hard conversation, yes, to clarify, to clear the air. Sometimes we can think parents know and they don't know how their being while rearing you affected you. And so we cannot be afraid of what our parents would say. We have to be clear that this is for me. This is for my own self-care. This is for my healing. That's why sometimes a letter works best, because you don't need a response. You just need to say all the things that are burning in your heart. And so when you say it, you're able to release it so that you can move on into the greatness that God has put you in the earth to be. And so we cannot be afraid of what our parents would say, because this is your experience. And because here's the thing, even if your parent did not mean to do it, it still affected you. And so you still have to give voice to it. You still have to identify it so that you can move on. You have to. I know people tell you, as the reason I wrote this book, Hard Conversations, and it really is all the characters in the book are people of color, is because in our communities, we are taught just get over it, move on. Yet what's happened to us is destroying our lives. It's being destroyed through bad relationships. It's being destroyed through alcoholism. It's being destroyed through promiscuity. It's being destroyed through having babies where we're not good parents to. It's being destroyed by drug addiction. Come on, it's being destroyed by just being dysfunctional individuals. And we have to have these conversations, especially when it's rooted in our childhood and who our parents have been. Because the great news about it is that sometimes who our parent was raising us is not who they are now. But just because they have changed does not mean that for us to move on, it must not be rectified, or it is. And let me say it this way: just because they've changed does not negate the fact that you have to have the conversation, because if you deduce the patterns in your life, that you can't get further because it's still in your mind, it's still in your heart, it's still in your soul, then you have to have the conversation. Even if they cry, if they get upset, you have to let go of the fear of what they will say and move into, this is for me. It's not for them. It's not to make them feel bad, but I have a right to my story. I have a right to say, this is what you did, even if you did not mean. I'm not blaming you, because it's not about blame. It's about saying, this has been my experience of you, and this is what it did to me, and I need to let you know so that I can move on. Not so that you can apologize, not that you can feel bad, but I have to let you know that there was damage done at your hands, and I love you, and I have forgiven you, but I have to let you know so that I can be clear, so that I can move on. So number one, in these, there's rejection from a parent, you have to have the conversation, and you cannot be afraid. Don't be afraid of what they'll say, because it's not about what they'll say. It's about giving voice to what's happened to you. Okay? So number two, do not be afraid of their further rejection. Do not be afraid of their further rejection. Sometimes we don't have the hard conversation with the parent because we're afraid that they'll say something or do something because you told them the truth, that they will stop talking to you, or they'll stop speaking to you, or they'll stop doing anything. But the fact is, you're already damaged. So you cannot be afraid that they'll reject you further, because now you're an adult and you can take, as a child, you didn't know how to protect yourself. But as an adult, you now hopefully have gained some tools and some resources of how you can move on from it. But you have to have the conversation. You cannot be afraid. What if they further reject me? Well, you already know what it is to be rejected, and you're still here. Now it's about your healing, not about their acceptance, right? It's not about their acceptance, because you may never get that. And you have to, as an adult, have to come to the realization that you may never get their acceptance. If they don't have the tools, if they don't have the will, you may never get their acceptance. But you're having the conversation so that you can get your healing. And guess what? They're just a piece of your healing. They're not responsible for your healing. You're just having the conversation so that you can go on the path of getting your healing in that hard conversation. But you cannot be afraid of further rejection, because you have to go into it understanding that it's a real possibility that they'll deny everything, that they'll make you feel like it's your fault, that you're making it up, that you're too emotional and all of that. No. But you know how you're existing currently. And so you have the hard conversation, not because you need it for you. It's not about their further rejection. It's not about them admitting it. It's about getting your healing. All right. Number three, do not be afraid of not receiving an apology. So many of us are stuck at 8, at 9, at 12, at 15, as something that our parents have done or said, and we won't confront them about it, or we won't have the hard conversation about it because we are afraid that they won't apologize for it. And again, your journey of healing, your journey of becoming the best version of you has nothing to do with their response. It has to do with your effort of you proactively going after your healing, your ability to have this hard conversation with them. And some of us won't have it because I ain't gonna send it because they're not gonna apologize. So what? They don't have to apologize. You just have to give voice to what's happened to you. Because if they don't ever apologize, think about people that are writing a letter to a parent that is dead. They're writing the letter for their healing. The parent can't respond. They can't say that they're sorry. They can't say that they apologize, but it still is cathartic, and it still brings healing when you articulate your experience of them and the damage that it's done. And so then what you do is you're really giving God permission to now heal you, because you're willing to confront the pain that's on the inside of you. And so when a parent has rejected you, you cannot, when you go to them with the conversation, whether it's through letter, over the phone, via Skype, in person, it's not about the apology. It's about giving, really what you're doing is giving them the opportunity of how their state of being has affected your state of being. And so you cannot be afraid of not getting the apology, because some parents will never apologize. Come on, all of us have people in our family, all of us have people that we know that no matter what you tell them, you can have them on videotape doing it, and they still will deny that they did it. They will still deny that it won't them. Come on, you can have fingerprints. Come on, you could have the welts. You could have the sworn testimonials, and yet they will still deny that they did it. So you having the conversation with a parent that rejected you in one way or another is not about their apology. It's about you pursuing your healing. It's again, a parent rejecting you is not them just not being in the house. Sometimes they're in the house, right? And in the house, they paid you no attention. They competed with you. They kept they kept sibling rivalry going amongst their children. They were jealous of you because it is a real thing that parents can be jealous of their children and compete with their children. You always felt like you were second to a man or a woman in their life, or to their job, or to their career, or to their ministry. And so one of the overarching themes in the book is around the rejection of parents, right? And so you cannot be afraid that they won't apologize. And so sometimes we don't have the conversation. It's something that happens in our minds a lot of times, that before we take action, we try to anticipate what the outcome's going to be. It's like we try to look into the future and say, no, I ain't gonna do it because this gonna happen. But the great thing about a cosmic or a kairos moment is that sometimes what you expect is not what you get. That you tell your parent how what they did affected you, or how they were affected you, and they give you the apology, or they break down and let you know their story that brings clarity around why they were the person that they were at that season of your life. And then you get the healing that you need from them directly, right? But you don't know without having a conversation, and you cannot fear them not apologizing. You got to have it, because again, the healing, you're pursuing your healing, not their apology. And you have to be willing to have the hard conversation so that you can heal, whether they say yes or if they deny the whole thing. You got the ball rolling on your healing by having the hard conversation with them, okay? Number 4, do not be afraid that others won't understand or they'll discredit your emotions. Sometimes we won't have the hard conversation because we are afraid that the people around us will not understand what we said. Because here's something that I see a lot as well. You can have multiple siblings growing up in the same house with the same parents, but it affected all of you differently, right? And so where one person, because their parents told them that they were ugly, one child shrugged it off and kept living. The other child was utterly devastated, and they lived their whole life trying to make themselves beautiful, looking for their father's or their mother's approval. And so what happens often is we don't have the hard conversation because we're afraid that it will ruffle the feathers of our siblings, or we're afraid that it will ruffle the feathers of our aunt or our uncle, or we'll ruffle the feathers of somebody in the family. And so we won't have the hard conversation because we're afraid somebody else is going to come down on us for articulating our experience of our parents. Well, you know, your mama did the best they could. It's not about her doing the best she could. It's about me getting my healing. Well, you know, your daddy loved you. I'm telling you that I felt like he did it, and so I had to have the hard conversation. Well, no, you shouldn't say that to them. Don't tell me what I should say about my experience because it's mine. And so I have to articulate my experience in order to pursue my healing. And so sometimes we have to get over the fear of ruffling feathers in the family because of we're trying to be healed, right? And a sub note to that is that when you're having the hard conversation with your parent, it really is nobody else's business. And if they share it outside of the conversation you have, that's on them. But do not be afraid to have the conversation because other people were dismissing and say, no, that didn't happen to you, or no, that didn't affect you that way. How can you tell me how what they did affected me just because it affected you differently? Come on, sometimes as people, we would try to make other people's feelings our feelings. Well, I just got over it. Well, that was you. That wasn't me. What they said about me damaged my soul. And I've been fighting their words for 30 years. And so I have to have the hard conversation, whether they've changed or not, whether they feel bad about it or not. I still have a wound in my soul. And in order for me to pursue my healing, because really only God can give you the healing, not the person. But I'm having the hard conversation because it ushers in the healing of God, right? And so I'm going to you to have the hard conversation so that I can then from this point allow God to come in and heal me. But I have to have the hard conversation about being rejected by a parent, if that's your story. Again, my book is fiction, Hard Conversations, coming out June 22nd. But we're talking about the overarching theme, one of the overarching themes of the book, which is rejection of a parent. Okay? Last point. Do not be afraid that who you are becoming will never measure up to their expectations. Do not be afraid that who you are becoming will never measure up to their expectations. This is a big one. So many people feel rejected by their parents because they feel as though they can never live up to the expectations that they have, that their parent has of them. You became a lawyer and your parents wanted you to be a doctor. You were okay being a nurse, but they wanted you to be a doctor. You didn't marry the person that they wanted you to be. And so sometimes we're afraid to have the hard conversation about how their words, how their being affected us, because we think, well, no matter what I say, it's never going to live up to their expectations. But it goes back to what I said just a few minutes ago. It's not about their acceptance. It's not about their apology. It's not about them saying, yeah, you're right. I was completely wrong. Please forgive me. It's about your healing. And your healing starts with a hard conversation. If you can't articulate it, you can't heal from it. And so sometimes with parents, we don't have the hard conversation because we're afraid of, no matter what I say, I'll never be good enough for them. It's not about being good enough for them. You have to be good enough for God and good enough for you. Right? You got to be good enough for God and good enough for you. And so whether they suck their teeth and walk away after you've said all that you have experienced, and you said all and how it affected you. It's not about blame either. It's not about, when you're having these hard conversations, it's not about saying you did this and you did that, because most people will shut down when you say you, and you do the blame thing, and they feel like they're being attacked. But when you say, I remember this happening in my life and this is how it affected me. When you keep it there, this is what I remember happening in my life and this is how it affected me. If you keep it there, you're not putting it on the blame on them. You're just telling them that this was an experience I had. You were involved and this is how it affected me now. It's not a sign of weakness. You can't be afraid of being vulnerable and being weak in front of people because they have no power over you unless you give it to them. But you have to have the hard conversation so that you can become strong, because there's no need to have the appearance of strength and you're really still broken. It's time to stop faking for people that are not paying us attention anyway. It's time to stop faking because we think that it makes us look great in the sight of God, when God is saying, no, I want you to be authentically real and be healed so you can be the strong giant that you pretend to be. Right? And so it's time to stop faking. It's time to have the hard conversation about the rejection that we faced, so that we can become the best version of us to do our assignment while we're still in the earth realm. And so we cannot be afraid that, well, I'm going to have this conversation and I'll never live up to their expectations, because their expectations really don't matter. I know people are shocked to hear somebody say that, but your parents' expectations of you don't matter, because their expectations can be flawed. Their expectations can be wrong. Their perspective can be distorted. And so their expectations really don't matter. The expectations that you live for should be the expectations of the Lord, of God. It should be his expectations for you. What does he say about you? What does he expect from you? Because everybody else is up to be wrong. Everybody else is up to have it to have a misconstrued because of their own pain, because of their own situation, because of their own flaws. And so you have to let go of their expectations in order to embrace the fullness of who you can become as you're healed, and have that hard conversation. Sometimes we wait till somebody die and we go to a grave and talk to somebody that's not there anymore, and we're pouring out our heart and boohooing and crying. Do it while they're living. Because guess what? One possibility of having the hard conversation is that you can restore the relationship. Maybe they will apologize. Maybe they will admit that they did it. And maybe you will get a measure of healing that starts with that conversation, but you'll never know until you have the hard conversation. And so many of us are stuck in a box right now that we built by not giving voice to what happened to us in our past. And so one of the themes of the book that comes out June 22nd is rejection of parent. A rejection of a parent. Again, it's a fiction story, but one of the characters are living in a prison of their present because of what happened in their past. And in order for him to get free, he has to have the hard conversation. And you never know how hard your life has been based on something that's happened to you until you begin to delve into what's happened to you in your past. And so listen, the book, we're going to meet every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on all my social media platforms to talk about another concept from the book. Again, tonight we talked about rejection of a parent and again, I'll say it again, all the stories are fiction. The stories are not about anybody that I know personally. It's not about something that I experienced, so don't try to read too deep into it. But it's happened to us all. And so we have to have those hard conversations in order for us to become the best version of us so we can move forward in our life and stop being boxed in by our past, right? And so if you have not, the book comes out June 22nd, but the song inspired by the book is already out, You're Real. God is doing amazing things with the song that's blowing my mind. As of earlier today, the song on Spotify has had 46,000 people stream it. Not 4,600, not 460, 46,000 people have listened to my song, You're Real, and it is awesome and awe-inspiring and amazing in my sight. I have never had that happen in my life. 46,000 people as of earlier have heard You're Real and streamed it on Spotify. God is amazing. He is amazing. I ain't gonna cry on here. God is amazing and is doing something amazing through this song, and I know through this book. And so the great news about it is that You're Real is out right now. If you have not streamed it, if you have not downloaded, if you will, please go and support your boy and download You're Real from any digital platform that you so desire. The book, again, is coming out June 22nd. I'm going to play the song as we close out this session. I'll be back next Tuesday talking about another overarching concept from the book. I'm not giving away all my goodies. I'm not giving away my stories, but I will talk about an overarching theme or concept from the characters in the book that's happening with the characters in the book. But you got to get your copy of the book June 22nd, whether you want a hard copy or you want to get it on Kindle. They both will be available on June 22nd. The art from the book, the cover design, I just got it right before this from my book partner. And so I'm so excited about the cover art for it, and it's becoming really real to me even the more because now I have the cover art from it. And so I'll be doing an interview probably in the next couple of weeks where we'll do a cover design. So I'll put all the details on my social media of what platform that'll be on so you can tune in and see the cover design. And we're going to do a cover reveal for the book that's coming out on June 22nd. So I thank you all for joining me. Please share this on your page if you so desire. If you want to support me more, share it on your page. I really on all your social media platforms. And I'm so glad, I'm so grateful for all of you that will ever watch this, wherever feel it. So I'm going to play the song for you as we close out. You have a great rest of your week, man. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Catcher of my falls, presence so bright, no flesh can stare and stand, and the holder of my hand. You're real, and your glory I can feel. He was worthy of all honor, and to break the seven seals, you will gather faithful servants, leaving others in the field. You're real.
seven seals, you will gather faithful servants, leaving others in the fields. You're real, Yahweh. You're real. Only you deserve the glory. You deserve the praise. You deserve all perfect. You deserve all your ways. You deserve the glory. You deserve the praise. You deserve perfect in all your ways. You're real, you're real, you're real. In your glory I can feel. Here's worthy of all honor. And to break the seven seals, you will gather faithful servants, leading others in the fields. You're real, Yahweh. You're real, so real, so real. You're real, you're real, you're real. In the glory I can feel. He's worthy of all honor. And to break the seven seals, you will gather faithful servants, leaving others in the fields. You're real, Yahweh. You're real, so real. You're real, Yahweh. So real, so real, so real.